Hi, this is Julie. In the last couple of videos, we've looked at rules for exponential form. We've looked at the product rule, the quotient rule, the power rule. In this video, we're going to put it all together, and we're going to look at the power rule for products and quotients. So what we're going to be looking at are cases where we have some sort of a product. So, for example, here x times y, or a quotient, x divided by y, and we take that entire quantity and we raise it to a power. So let's again look at a specific example. We'll start off with a product example, and what I've got here is the quantity ABC raised to the second power. Now, if we think about the product rule and the power rules that we've already talked about, I know that what this means is I'm going to take A, B, C, and because I'm raising it to the second power, I'm going to multiply that by itself. So I'm going to have ABC times ABC. Now, if I were to sort of rearrange that and put these things back together here, I've got A times A that I'm multiplying, so that can be rewritten as A squared. I have B times B, which of course can be rewritten as B squared, and then I have C times C, which can be rewritten as C squared. And so that's really what the power rule for products is going to say, is that when I have a product like A times B times C, I raise it to a power. I'm going to raise each individual factor in that product to that power and compute them separately. So if I were going to restate that general rule, I would say that the product xy raised to the m power is going to be x to the m, look a little bit better, times y to the m. There we go. Okay, so let's look at one more example with a product. This time I have 2x, the product 2x, raised to the third power. So again, I can think, if I were to sort of write that out, what I'd have is 2x times 2x, oops, make that look like an x, times 2x. And if I were then to put that together, sort of rearrange, collect together the 2's, collect together the x's, I'd have 2 to the third power times x to the third power. And 2 to the third power, well, actually, let's go back here for a second here. So now this looks like the form of the general rule I just wrote. I took that third power, I put it on the 2 to the third power. I did the same thing with the x. Here's the x to the third power. And now, since I do have the number 2 here raised to the third power, and I can figure out what 2 to the third power is, I can go ahead and simplify that. 2 to the third power is 8. And so this is going to be 8x to the third power, and that would be my sort of my final simplified form for that product. So now let's look at some quotient examples. Quotients are going to look much the same. They're going to work in the same way. If I have a quotient like p over q raised to the third power, I'm going to think about fractions here. If I had the fraction p over q and I need to multiply it by itself, to the third power, so I'm going to do that 3 times, what it would look like would be this, p over q times p over q times p over q. And if I were to sort of put that back together, I would have p to the third power over q to the third power. And that's the quotient rule, or the power rule for quotient, sorry. I'm going to take that exponent and apply it to both the numerator and the denominator. So general form here for the power rule for quotients, if I have x over m raised to the m power, that's going to be x to the m over y to the m. Okay, so let's look at another example here. This time I have a little bit more complex problem. I've actually got a quotient, 3a over b, that has a product in the numerator. Or in the top part of the quotient. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first start with the power rule for quotients. I'm going to take that exponent, the 2, and apply that to the numerator, 3a. So I've got 3a to the second power. And then it's also going to apply to the denominator, which is the b. So I'll have b squared down in the denominator there, or the bottom part of that quotient. And now I'm actually going to apply the power rule for products, and I'm going to say, well, 3a to the second power means I'm going to take 3 to the second power, which is 9, and a to the second power, which is just a to the second power, because I can't simplify that. And then the denominator there, b to the second power, stays the same. So that's what this final simplification would look like here, 9a to the second power over b to the second power. And that is the power rule for products and quotients. In the next two videos, we'll take a look at a last couple of exponent rules. Thanks for tuning in.